of home ownership. So, going from a $100,000 increase from 2016 to July of 2021, that's just not sustainable, and it's pricing a lot of people out of home ownership. So this quote from Rachel Taylor Sagi, the ED of Habitat for Humanity of La Plata County, is thought it was an interesting quote that really put things into context. So it is from a couple years ago, and like I said, the situation has just gotten more problematic. So in 2017, more than 61% of wage earners in La Plata County earned wages between $15,000 and $44,500. This population would, on average, be able to afford homes with mortgages of $185,000 to $220,000. Currently, this type of housing is rare, increasingly resulting in substandard and overcrowded rental housing. The ties between rental housing and home ownership. Everything is intertwined, right? And employment is intertwined, and economic development is intertwined, and transportation is intertwined, and even health is intertwined. All of these things come together. But with the increasing rental prices and people selling a rental property that we're seeing a lot of people who are getting displaced. Some of them who are ready for home ownership are able to just kind of buy a house even though they weren't necessarily intending to, but some people are just getting displaced and they really have no place to go, and they're leaving our community. So the things that the Homebuyer Assistance Program, like I said, composed of mortgage assistance loans, and those fill the gap between our low workforce wages and high home prices. So in Bayfield, and actually all of La Plata County, we have up to $60,000 available for Bayfield home buyers. Home buyer education, we provide monthly classes, and actually our next home buyer education class in La Plata County will be here in Bayfield. It will be on September 18th from 8:30 to 4:30. At the Pine River Library. And certainly anyone who's listening who would like to attend a homebuyer education class, would love to have people please tell people to come. It's the class itself is free, but there's a $15 workbook fee. The workbook has great information in it. So really encourage people to come to that. And then housing counseling is where we do a really in-depth look at someone's budget to make sure that they really can afford home ownership, and talk to them about which different loan products they can afford and whatnot. So our outcomes in the town of Bayfield, 30 Bayfield families have used Homes Fund Mortgage Assistance to buy a home. That's $834,692 of mortgage assistance, which has helped those 30 families buy $6.1 million in homes. So, this program we're taking, sometimes it's over the years, sometimes it's been a $20,000 loan, sometimes it's been $60,000 more recently, and we're able to help people buy that, let's say $200,000 or $300,000 house. The average house that people are buying within the town of Bayfield is $204,000. And then we also serve people who are in the Bayfield area, have a Bayfield address, Forest Lakes folks. We've got a lot of people, a lot of clients who buy homes up in Forest Lakes. So 49 Bayfield area families have used Homes Fund Mortgage Assistance to buy a home. That's $1.75 million in mortgage assistance provided in this area. $11.9 million in homes have been purchased. The average amount of mortgage assistance is almost $36,000, and the average home price is $243,000. I've got some slides of some Bayfield homeowners. So hopefully some of you will recognize some of these faces of your friends and neighbors. A lot of those are over in the Fox Farm area. And one more. And then speaking of Fox Farm, Homes Fund also does the income certifications for Fox Farm. So we have 3 certified housing counselors on our staff and also 3 licensed mortgage loan officers. And with that staffing, with that knowledge, we're able to easily analyze all of the income and other qualifications so that people who meet all of the qualifications for the Fox Farm program can get into that program. So we also partner with realtors, lenders, title companies, et cetera, to provide information about Fox Farm. And just a little bit of an aside, I think that Fox Farm, out of all of the communities that I've seen in deed restricted communities I've seen, I think that Fox Farm is actually one of the best. It's one of the easiest to manage. And I think that as far as a template goes, you guys have a really good program right here in Bayfield. It's much better than a lot of them I've seen in much bigger cities. As far as management goes, as far as ease of people understanding things. So, if you're going to use a template, may as well use what's working here. Every place has its pros and cons. Every deed restricted community has its pros and cons. But from what I've seen, I'd say that the Fox Farm community is certainly better than most. It has more pros and fewer cons than a lot of the other deed restricted communities out there.
Lisa?
Yeah.
And that's managed by?
So it's managed by the HOA.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and the HOA, I believe that the most powerful person on the HOA, it's Habitat for Humanity.
Okay.
Actually, has a lot of weight on that homeowners association. So, and they keep a close eye on it. We're doing the income certifications.
They do keep a close eye on it. I'm a neighbor up there. And I've been, actually was on the board when Fox Farm was initially conceptualized and went off the board as it went through the process. But you're right, it's well built as far as the infrastructure that serves it. And it hasn't been built too fast. As far as being built out. Sometimes I wish there'd been some different models applied to it, but as it works, I mean, you have a whole bunch of homeowners up there that are engaged in the community. And in terms of the type of development that is good for community, small, compact, well-done development is better than spreading it all out, which is what we have on the north side of the road in a couple of spots.
Yeah, I mean, density certainly has a lot of benefits.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So with the Cinnamon Heights project, I mainly want to say that Homes Fund is here for you guys. If you need help, if you need to bounce some ideas off of someone, if you would like to contract with us for administration, if you just need some help with it, I think that's going to be largely the topic of conversation today. So and I'm happy to come back for future meetings as well. But we have staff. We have staff that can do a lot of these things. We can do the housing counseling. We can do the income certifications. We can assess readiness for home ownership. We have a history of creating and managing deed restriction programs, and we've not going to say that we're ever going to be perfect at it, because no one ever is, but we've certainly learned some lessons along the years, and we're happy to help. I think that just kind of a word of warning, deed restricted communities often take a lot more administration than people initially think that they're going to. So just throwing that out there. It's not a bad thing or trying to dissuade anything, but it does require administration and management.
Can I ask a question about that?
Of course.
If you administer or doing that piece of it, what is the what did the costs of something like that, or is it included in like,
Yeah, I mean, I think it's to be determined, and I would need to know how many units it would be. Would we be doing the administration? Would we be talking about like a flat fee per year or per unit as it gets occupied? What duties the HOA is taking on versus like what duties we would be taking on.
okay.
There's a lot that we would just need to talk about. So sorry, I can't
No,
give
you're
you
fine.
any sort
No,
of
actually,
like,
your
figure
answer
right now.
gave kind of some ideas of like, the continuity of it, whether it's like a one-time thing or, kind of gives us a place to kind of start. I get that you'd have to negotiate it and you got to know all the ins and outs of what you're doing
Yeah.
before you can say, hey, it's this much.
And how much of it could fit within our existing infrastructure, and how much, and whether or not like we'd have to hire a new staff person to take on some of these duties, like all of those things I feel like we would have to have much larger conversations about. But I think that Homes Fund is in a position where we can we can say, hey, we've done some of these before, and we are here for our community, for our various communities. Bayfield. We serve Bayfield, and we serve the homeowners and workforce of Bayfield. So it's very much within our mission and within our desires as an organization. So we do have an existing professional services agreement. That's what it's called. That covers through 2022. It's a 3-year agreement, and it has us covering basically all of our programs that I've gone over thus far. So providing that homebuyer education class in Bayfield, plus 11 more in the rest of La Plata County. Things did go a little bit haywire with COVID. We did have to cancel all of our in-person classes for more than a year, but we have resumed our in-person classes, and during the time when we were not offering in-person classes, we were offering online homebuyer education, and that homebuyer education, that online homebuyer education is still ongoing. So if someone wants to take that course from the comfort of their own home, they're welcome to do that. There's something that's lost with online stuff. I think we're all super eager to be back, but we're getting people into home ownership in Bayfield and in the Bayfield surrounding area as well. So part of our agreement is to provide housing counseling as well to at least 85 La Plata County households to help them get ready for home ownership, and provide mortgage assistance loans of at least $300,000 in the county. Also in the agreement is that we will educate lenders, realtors, and the public about affordable housing programs, and provide those Fox Farm income certifications. So, being here is of course part of informing the public about our programs. But if there's anything, if you guys are part of Rotary clubs, or have a friend who's a realtor who would like to sit down with us and talk to us about these programs, we're really happy to do outreach. So so thank you all for your support, and I'm happy to answer any questions or
Yeah, and I have
Yes, what's
asked
the
Lisa to
format?
stick around for our discussion portion.
Yeah.
Oh,
in a
that's
little bit.
awesome.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Thank you.
I'll be right there. Thank you guys.
Yeah, Lisa,
Thanks
I
for coming.
really appreciate your presentation. I know in the healthcare industry, there are a lot of nurses who are unable to find affordable housing, and so I will share with my partners your organization to see if there's anything that can do to help bolster bringing more nurses down to Southwest Colorado.
Fabulous. Yeah, we'd love to help.
Yeah.
Yeah, and our income limits have gone up recently.
Oh, that's good.
It used to be that, people who were nurses generally didn't fall within our income limits for our mortgage assistance, but that's changed. So
That's
would
good to
love
know.
to even do some outreach with your coworkers. So
Cool.
happy to do that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, next we have Chris Lopez. He's with the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority. Welcome, Chris, and thank you for sharing your time with us tonight.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you all being here, and that's a great act to follow. Lisa does a tremendous job. I'll just say Homes Fund is an incredible organization and one of our really on-the-ground partners. And so, I mean, Lisa really on-the-ground, go-to great organization. I'm gonna kind of take it up to a higher level, I guess, because again, we're a statewide agency, but I'm here locally now as a new position. So, who is Chaffa? Go to the next one. So, you know, again, one of the things honestly, I thought when I took my job in December, got a state job. We are actually not a state agency. So I even learned that and didn't know that. So news to me, we're actually a nonprofit agency, but we are not a state agency, although we were created by the state legislature in 1973 to conduct affordable housing. So again, we don't take any direct appropriations in terms of tax dollars. We're a self-funding, self-sustaining agency. We did receive authority to use bond proceeds to move into economic development. Again, another shock to me. So people think of Chaffa, they think of housing. Well, we also do small business lending and economic development. So sort of another thing in our wheelhouse we do. And we're a mission-based organization. So all of our profits do go directly back into funding our programs and activities. And we have 188 employees. So next. So again, we're a mission-driven organization. We strengthen Colorado by investing in affordable housing and community development. The only reason Chaffa exists is to fulfill its mission. Not a publicly traded company, and so our CEO reports to the board of directors that's appointed by the governor, as well as positions within the state government. And so again, there's no investors to pay distributions to. Next. And again, with our vision statement, it's not a goal, but drives our behavior to give us motivation to fulfill our mission. Next. And again, our board sets our values, some being diverse and inclusive. We appreciate and embrace and leverage the similarities and differences amongst our employees, customers, and partners to make better decisions. We're fiscally responsible by managing financial matters with integrity, accountability, and foresight. And I'm here today because we are engaged with community, ensuring our community outreach activities connect us with customers, increase our awareness of their needs. Next. So I think of Chaffa as sort of a three-legged stool. We do home ownership, again, one of our partners locally being Homes Fund and Lisa. We do rental housing as well as business lending. So those are kind of our three buckets if you think of Chaffa, of what does Chaffa do. Next, I'm going to talk about the housing continuum. Again, this is sort of a range of housing options from homeless housing on up through home ownership. This is sort of Chaffa's graphic visualization of steps, income levels associated with the continuum. Might be a little hard to see here. Essentially, our obligation is to serve the entire spectrum of housing options. If you kind of look at it starting on the left, we really kind of have our multifamily, starting with some homeless, multifamily rental typically. Home ownership being closer to the farther right, the higher the incomes go, the more people can get into home ownership then. And then really business finance, we serve across the entire spectrum. So next, specific to like home ownership, kind of like with what Lisa was talking about, you know, we are not the originator of mortgages. Chaffa's not out there doing direct lending. We purchase mortgages from a network of lending partners that we have throughout the state. So we have 110 lending partners and banks that originate the loans that we then purchase those mortgages and provide the individual families with down payment assistance and home buyer education programs. Again, Homes Fund. Again, so part of what we do is housing stability is at the center of what we do. So we only offer 30-year fixed rate mortgages. So again, customers know exactly what their monthly payment is going to be. And then down payment assistance, like Lisa was mentioning, one of the biggest burdens to home ownership. So we understand that that's critical. Next is rental housing. So again, this is where we're different. We are a direct lender. This is different than home ownership. We make both construction and permanent loans for new construction or preservation of affordable units. We use private activity bonds, and we are the allocating agency, if you've heard of the low-income housing tax credits, or LIHTC. Couple examples, we have a few in the area, but Miramar, going into Three Springs, the VOA project, is a LIHTC project. Lumion 2 Apartments, which is on Durango off 32nd Street. And one that this is a picture of, which is pretty exciting, I was just there a couple weeks ago, is the Calkins Commons over in Cortez, which is the old high school, middle school that they're renovating the building to provide affordable housing, as well as building new construction on the site. So that's a pretty cool project. If you're in Cortez, it's just south of downtown. We also, news to me, is we have an asset managed team that assists with like regulatory compliance for these types of projects. So again, we ensure that income levels are targeted, and we conduct inspections to ensure that these different multifamily projects are in compliance. Lastly, our business lending arm. Again, we are not here to compete with banks. That was not Chaffa's interest, was come in and compete with banks. We want to be a partner. So again, we provide permanent financing, whereas the banks provide construction financing, like Homes Fund. And our business lending arm, Region 9 Economic Development, is really our primary partner in this region that cranks out. I mean, they're like one of Chaffa's #1 partners across the state of Colorado when it comes to business lending. I mean, Region 9 does an amazing job. And we have a lot of like access to capital, credit enhancement, specialty programs that basically we offer to help the bank be more comfortable with making loans that they may not normally make. So some of our numbers since 1973, $21.5 billion in finance production with over 132,000 customers served. We've done $2.7 billion in multifamily loan production with 970 developments, over 73,000 units created, 71,500 affordable rental housing units supported by housing credits, and $1.4 billion invested in business lending, serving 7,200 businesses, almost 78,000 jobs. So that's, again, we're just a Colorado agency. So next slide. Some of these numbers really blew me away. As of just in 2020, we did $3.1 billion in single-family loans, $326 million in multifamily lending, almost $120 million in business lending, 97% employee satisfaction so far. I'm very happy. I've only been there a few months, but it's a great group to be with. So these are just some of our numbers from 2020. I'll just mention a couple other additional resources. A new program, we have a climber loan program for small businesses. We have interesting thing on low-income housing tax credits. Typically, you looked at some of those projects. These are, you're looking at over 30, 40, 50 units. I mean, to make the numbers work to do a low-income housing tax credit deal, you need numbers, volume. Well, there's a big need in these smaller communities for 10, 12, 20 units, right? Multifamily developments, and it's challenging to get the financing. So Chaffa recognizes this. We have this new SHIP, or Small Housing Innovation Program, to basically offer both technical assistance in the pre-development in some of these. How can we help some of these people understand local jurisdictions? Okay, we want to do this small 20-unit development. We have the land, but we're just not sure where we even go from here. So we offer technical assistance in regards to that, as well as we're starting to get into construction financing, which is new for us. So I know we've been talking with a group up in Silverton right now on that Anvil Mountain project, if any of you are familiar with that, on sort of when you come through Silverton going to Red Mountain, that development on the north side. They're looking to they have some deed restricted lots up there, income restricted lots. They're trying to find some construction financing for that. For example, it's like 8 lots, so we're working with them on that. Lastly, I do want to mention, I'm pretty impressed with our corporate giving. It's a pretty robust corporate giving that Chaffa does. I've been blown away. Same with, we have a direct effect award that's sort of an annual thing. So, who am I? And this is what Chaffa did. So Chaffa recognized about 2 years ago that they're a very Denver-centric organization, although they serve the whole state. So they started with Caroline Tranny down in Pueblo about 2 years ago, hired Caroline, saying we need people out in the community so people can know about us and just to help connect dots, even if it's not to Chaffa. Jeff Owsley then came on board out of Alamosa, and he was kind of covering my region. And then they've just expanded in late last year in December to Margie Joy up in Northwest Colorado and myself. And so actually I need to update this map because now, so I cover Southwest Colorado and I'm basically cover Pagosa, Cortez, Dolores, Telluride, Ouray, I've taken now Montrose and Gunnison as well and back down. But Chaff has basically said, hey, we need folks out in the community, meeting with people, coming to these meetings, participating and seeing where we can help. And again, Chaffa did not tell me, go get more loans for us, Chris. It's like, no, go help community, see where you can connect the dots. And so again, I'll just add with the last slide here of, we're taking a holistic approach to community investment, identifying underserved communities. And again, thanks for inviting me to be here tonight to be a partner in problem solving, listening, collaborating, making connections. And again, I live in Hermosa, so I live in the area, and I'm always available to be here. And I'm gonna stick around for the session too, but.
Perfect, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Picture of a move-in ready home.
All right, at this time, I'd like to go ahead and open it up for public input. If we have any members of the public that would like to address the board, please step forward, state your name and address, and you have the floor.
I'm Lori Lazari, and I'd rather just give my address offline. First of all, I came in order to talk about one particular thing, but after this presentation, I wanted to mention that Charlotte Dyer and I met with Katie on May 10th. That was our first meeting regarding just after we found out about Cinnamon Heights. I live in the neighborhood. And she absolutely indicated this is not going to be a Fox Farms. This isn't going to be mobile homes. This isn't going to be manufactured homes.
Correct.
And then this whole presentation has changed this whole thing, I guess.
So that presentation was just to tell us what they do and what their organization does. They don't indicate what we're doing in this situation. There's a plat map that's already predetermined what's going on those properties, and we have no intention of changing that.
Good. That's very good. Okay. Based on, I was at last Tuesday's meeting, and when I was there, at the very end, that's when Mayor Tarkington said, based on what Charla had presented, it was the first indication that people are not on board on this. And I was just like, why are we even coming to these meetings? Because I believe it was July 6th meeting, and you'll find it in the packet, July 26th. I gave a presentation on behalf of, Charla wasn't here, so I read her comments. I read my comments. Linda Abbott was here, she had comments. Not one of them was positive. We all had different ideas of why this isn't gonna work, why it's too hard to try to do something that is affordable housing, and yet we're putting a whole nother layer of cost in by including the town. And this is not a project anyone here at the town has had experience with. And it's just, I mean, it's like, I've lived here 3 years, but I'm thinking, I don't want this town to just go bankrupt, And I don't want the taxes going up so high to try to keep up with this. We were all concerned about the fact that the money, the initial money to buy this property came from the sewer fund. It was on March 19th that a contract was signed. The community was notified. This is in the Durango Herald. This is May 15th and 16th. That's 2 months after the fact. I looked up today what the qualifications are to be the mayor or on the town board of trustees, and one of them is dedication to the interests of citizens and the community as a whole. And I just felt like we give our input and it's on deaf ears. Nobody even heard us. And I mean, and then Mayor Tarkington, you did mention that one person came and said something positive, and that was a nurse, and it was about 2 sentences long. I remember that. We have given plenty of information of why we disagree with this. And I just feel like, as a citizen of Bayfield, we're not heard. And then, last meeting, after Charlotte got up again and gave all her qualms about it, then the next issue was to vote on if we will pay $85,000 to SGM Engineering to get going on the progress. Correct me if I'm wrong, I believe everybody voted yes. And I'm just like, I've never been, this is, when I started coming to these meetings, it was the first town meeting I'd ever been to, and I'm just assuming it's similar to any government, like federal government, where there are two sides, at least two sides, if not three sides, and there's debate. I feel like this whole board is groupthink, and it's a go, and nobody's listening to the community, and that's who you're supposed to represent. And I'm just appalled that this small town of Bayfield, that I want to be a part of, is not looking out at the whole community.
So we understand that there's been questions and concerns brought up over and over that we have actually provided answers to, written answers to.
Okay.
My comment, and I stand by it, it was the first time someone stood up here in person and said to halt the project.
Well,
We have heard it in a comment in a letter, but nobody stood up here, gave their name, and stood up there to take the credit for that.
Well,
So that was my comment.
I didn't give my name. If I have it here, I think I do. I read for Charlotte because she was out of town. And it is in here where she says you need to stop this project. I didn't highlight it, so I'm not going to stand here and just,
But that's a secondhand account of a statement. That's what I'm saying. And like I said, I will
Okay.
stand by that statement.
okay,
It's the
well,
first
I
time.
should have been much more direct. I should stop this
Uh-huh.
now. And this is what I would suggest. I would suggest that the town reach out to every builder you know here and in Durango and call them in for a meeting and say, we're going to put this land up for sale, and we need it. It's already platted for townhomes. We need a lower income housing. I don't want to call it that, but workforce housing. And we need input from you, and how can you tell us how to make it come out that way? Because they're the ones that know. They're the builders. And if the town is involved, everything is just gonna cost that much more every time you hire a builder. Because there's red tape, and there's reporting you have to do, and there's accountability, and we need to give it. The market, we have a very large need for market housing of every type, from lower income to higher income. And we gotta let the market work its way out and let government get out of the way. Government needs to say, what can we do to make your job easier? Do we have any hoops that we make you jump through, or approvals that take too long? But we need to have good codes too. I just know from one experience in this town, to put in a driveway, there's no code saying you have to put rebar in, which I would say straighten that one up, because I know somebody has real problems with their driveway. So I don't like lots of codes and regulations that are going to just halt work. But we got to just clean up the whole process here. And I would put me on record. I'm saying sell this land, and let the market work it out, and builders will come, and I just believe they will, and they will do it the right way.
So Lori, are you a resident of the town of Bayfield?
I'm in Cinnamon Heights
Okay.
area.
Thank you.
One of the things that I feel strongly in listening to my community is not just in this room. In this room, my experience is that 99.9% of the people in this community won't ever walk through that door.
I agree.
So here's the thing. Out of that, and when I go and I talk to the community, and I'm around a lot, I do a lot of things, I have not heard one negative comment outside of you and Charlotte. And that's outside of that presentation you did the day where you had the Two people. You spoke for Charla. You weren't speaking for yourself, as you said at that meeting. So now you're included in that. But I've not heard anybody else say that this was a bad idea
As you
or
talk
that
to
we
them,
shouldn't do anything like
how
this.
many people even know? Most
Oh,
of the people
for
I
me,
talk to do
lots.
not.
Let me tell you, I'm in the banking industry. I know a lot of people. I talk to a lot of people about finances every day on a daily basis. I'm also a Rotarian. I'm the Bayfield Chamber of Commerce. What else do I do? Pine River Library. I mean, I'm really out in the community. I talk to people, and everybody that I have talked to is like, great job. We're really glad to hear this. And honestly, I'm taking the majority. I'm going to take the majority on every time. It's just like when marijuana was presented. Let's put it to the community. We took the majority. This is what I stand by.
And just to comment on that, because I was going to say, just to follow that up, is that when the community is riled up in this town, you know it. When marijuana was brought up, this boardroom was filled, multiple times filled, with every community member coming up to that. It wasn't just a few people, unfortunately. And that's what we're seeing currently. And we do have Homes Fund, we do have Region 9, we do have multiple community organizations that have also been supporting this for years. This is not just a conversation that started recently. In my last 5 years on the board, the main conversation that has been had is affordable housing and getting it into communities in any way.
Was it hush hush behind closed doors?
It
We
wasn't.
didn't
It
know
wasn't.
about it until May.
It was not.
It was not.
It's not in the meetings. It's not in the meeting notices.
And I think if you want to hang on the meeting, we are going to go through a list of all these concerns, and we're going to have a round robin discussion on it. If you want to hang out and listen to that.
And why was the money taken from the enterprise
Well, we're going to
fund?
address that. Do we have anyone else that would like to address the board at this time?
You want us to consider what you're gonna say, yeah, I would think you might wanna get up here and speak to us.
A lot of meetings are, you can comment on anything that's not on the agenda, like a Plata County planning meeting, that's the way theirs is, that's what I'm asking you.
Yeah, this is a work set. I mean, go ahead. You're here. We're here. You got a captive audience. Just state your name and address for the board.
It's simple. My name's Dale Ruggles. I've lived here for about 9 years, and I did move out of town, so I no longer am a city resident. But I come to Bayfield a lot, and I found two things very disturbing here lately that I hope the town and you guys get the handle on, and that's the painting and graphic and the destruction of the skate park. And I see they're doing the same thing at the library on the sidewalks. And I have pictures where they're painting male members on the sidewalks for our grandkids to look at. And I think it's disgusting, and I hope the board does something about all of this, the waste in this town, because it never used to be that way. Bayfield was a nice town. You didn't have the BS that Durango had. And I think if you guys crack down on them, put some people, make them pay for it, make their parents pay for it, make the parents crack down on them, I think it'll go a long ways to keeping Bayfield, a really good town.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else on Zoom, maybe, that would like to address the board? Nobody? Okay. So at this time, and I've asked Lisa and Chris to kind of hang out, and feel free at any moment to jump in if you have had any sort of background on some of these comments or questions as we go through them. But kind of the purpose of today is to go through not what we've always heard in this room, but what we've heard out in the community and, just some mumblings around town. So I'm just going to kind of fire off. The town.
Mayor, it may be appropriate to just kind of tail off on what your other trustee members may have begun to talk about, and that's really the history
Yeah.
of what it is this board and previous boards have tried to accomplish through affordable housing, workforce housing, and how this particular prospect arose in February and March of this year. And the decision by the board, the instruction and direction this board gave to the town manager with the mayor's assistance to enter into an executory contract after some negotiation. This board was very instructive with regards to negotiating a certain price, and then perhaps entering into an executory contract that was always you were always allowed to back out of it after a certain period of time before closing, if you felt that it was the wrong direction for the town to head. And due diligence was done. And so I might suggest a little discussion about that history going forward, just to make sure the record's clear.
Completely yeah, let me give a little historical perspective on this. So when I became mayor, I got sworn in, and Matt Salka was running for county commissioner. We had kind of had a discussion about, what did you wish you had done? What did you, what's one thing that you wish you had kind of pursued? And he said, well, honestly, he's like, I really wanted to buy those lots at Cinnamon Heights and develop it for affordable housing. And I said, why didn't you do that? Why didn't we ever have that discussion? It never came up. I don't know that if you ever had that discussion, but in my 2 years on the board, we didn't.
Not as a board.
Yeah. And I said, why didn't we pursue that? And he said, well, I kind of spoke to Chris LeMay, and he said, no. And I said, why didn't you come to the board and say, he goes, actually, that's just not the way it worked. So
You might want to say who Chris LeMay was.
he was
for
our
those who
previous
don't
town
know.
manager.
Okay.
So I have always had that in the back of my head saying, Matt, I would have backed you up on that. I would have helped you go to Chris and say, let's explore this. It just pretty much got shot down. So we got Katie on board here, and this was a discussion that we had way early in the game. And she said, well, that's all fine, but you need to figure out how your board feels about it. Maybe go test the temperature of the board. That's when I started calling everybody individually. What do you guys think? We've had countless, we still have countless conversations on this, but the direction I got from the board was to direct Katie to pursue and go forward with this project. And that's kind of how, and like Attorney Goldman said, that's how the process kind of started. And I felt like I have been advised by our legal team that we did everything within the confines of state statute and all legally. So I feel very at peace with where we're going. And I feel like at any point, if this board says, you know what, we're in over our heads, let's think about this, let's back out, I'm willing to listen to that. And I'm willing to take direction from the board to further direction. But I can sit here right now and say, I think we are all on the same page on this.
Madam Mayor, I do remember when we were having these discussions, I think Josh and I did ask, is there an option to sell, what if we decide not to do this, we can just sell the property, right? And the answer was yes. So there was always a way out if we determined that this was not going to work, and we asked. So we're gonna keep learning more about how we can do this, and if we get to the point where, there is a way not to do this if we want to. But yeah, because I'm not an expert in affordable housing, workforce housing. I see a great need for it, especially in the healthcare industry, in the restaurant industry. I see a lot of people who can't afford to live here. They can't afford to buy, they can't stay, and so our workforce is suffering for it. But I agree, I want to move forward and see, and I don't believe we're underwater yet. And if we are, I'll be the first one I'm always the first one to ask the question, because I'm like, what are we talking about? Because you guys have been on the board for so long. Some of you have been on the board longer, and you're like, oh yeah, we talked about that 4 years ago. And I'm like, well, I wasn't at that meeting because I wasn't on the board. But I feel like when things are confusing, I do ask the questions. And I do know that right now, I think we're in a good spot to continue to learn. And I think this is something that's good for our community and for the Southwest region as a whole and for the town.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, we did hire Katie to manage the town based on our direction. And that is,
Yeah, and Katie has absolutely, just to address the rumor that Katie has done all of this without board permission, that is absolutely 100% not correct. We have directed her to do this, move forward.
And I want to address something else here too, because let's go back to Fox Farm for just a moment. When Fox Farm came through, and Ron will remember this, they were trying to bring together, we had Bill Mashaw, who was the greatest of diplomats and who was his tag team buddy, Reed Ross, who pissed everybody off.
Antithesis of a great.
Yes,
community.
yeah, and, you know, and they had a plan, but they knew how to piss people off and then get it done. But they were bringing together a group of 3 or 4 housing entities. You know, there was Habitat for Humanity, Housing Solutions for the Southwest, and I think there were one or two other entities involved in that whole plan. And that's why when you look at Fox Farm as a whole, you kind of have some different construction methodologies at different points because of the way that that was all done. Because after Fox Farm was a thing, a couple of those entities went south. And Habitat for Humanity pretty much picked up the ball as those things went south and kept it rolling. And it's been a long time running, but I do believe that they're to a point where there's only 2 lots left up there to get developed, maybe down to 1. So the time is right for the town here, since we don't have to bring together a multitude of entities to make something happen. We're already dealing with a planned PUD, which means that we're gonna have to deal within the plans that have already been approved. And that should make all of the people that live within that PUD, put them at ease, because we have to fit into your neighborhood, however that is. We have to fit there. And that means it has to be painted to fit, the architecture has to fit. So the only real difference will be the deed restrictions. That will be the only thing.
And
When
the
it's
deed-
all said and done.
Yeah, and the deed restrictions are put in place to help protect the economics of the area so that, you know, we don't end up putting somebody in there and they turn around, they sell the property for a much higher amount and make a profit. We're not trying to put people into those properties that are intending to, you know, make it big off of it. We're putting people in those properties that intend to live and be part of our community. For me personally, I have a different aspect of this, my background and my history. I started in new home sales subdivisions. I have been a realtor. I have worked for the title companies. I've been in the mortgage industry. So not understanding some of the pieces of it is not true. I specialized in first-time home buying programs when I was a mortgage loan officer as well. So I'm very familiar with all of those programs that are out there for these people and what they can and cannot do, and seeing these kind of properties that were in different areas. So, you know, to say that we have absolutely zero experience is kind of, to me, not quantifiable. And anything that we don't know, we have a lawyer that's going to help us, and we have advisors, and we get the advisors for that reason.
I want to just hold real quick. I think we have, is it Bruce Evans with Upper Pine? Or,
And for whatever it's worth,
we
you
have,
know, I'm not entirely without
hold on,
development experience
David, we
myself.
have, go ahead, Bruce.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Who is this?
Bruce Evans.
Bruce Evans, got it.
Yeah, so, I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person, and, honestly, I think we should just take a pause here, be thankful it's not another storage unit complex.
There's some truth to that.
Okay, so I would just share with you, you know, out of the Upper Pine staff, I've got a staff of about 30, and only 11 of them live within the fire district. The rest of them are over in Pagosa. Some have just moved to Hesperus because it was more affordable, and a few of them in apartments over in Durango. And out of those 11, I would tell you, 3 of them are living with their parents in Bayfield, and the other 6 or 7 are living in Forest Lakes, and surprisingly, almost all of them on the same street. And then we've got one that just purchased a house in Cinnamon Heights, who was an apartment dweller over in Durango before he moved in just a few months ago over there. So, you know, housing continues to be a big challenge for us. A lot of it because the, you know, the wages are still not comparable to what they are over or what you would find on the Front Range, which are probably about 30% higher. So, you know, I get this controversial works project, you know, thing that's being handled by the government instead of the free market. But, you know, I'm hopeful, at least from the fire district, what we've seen recently in requests by private builders for other parcels, either in the town of Bayfield or outside the unincorporated area of Bayfield, that the free market is going to continue to flourish. I think, especially with some recent large parcel acquisitions by some of the other builders, and of course we know that Crossfire's accumulated pretty much all that property that's on the east side of Bayfield. So I know this seems out of the ordinary, and I would just give you two kind of anecdotal comments. One, I was over in Durango on Friday and dealing with a large employer over there over some other issues, and somebody made the comment about the affordable housing movement over here and said, at least your town is doing something about it. So I thought that was a fairly positive comment. Yesterday, I happened to catch two people outside the Pura Vida Cafe, and they were looking in the windows, and I stopped to ask what they were doing. They said they were thinking about buying the place, but couldn't understand why the place went out of business. And much like all the restaurants that have struggled, including Bottom Shelf Brewery, there has not been employees up there, and the owner from Pura Vida got frustrated with not having staff up there. And I told the gentleman who was from Connecticut, actually is the owner of Virgil's Soda Pop, and he said, you know, I just can't understand why this wouldn't work. And I said, well, the hard thing to get up here is employees, and honest employees that are going to work hard and that are going to show up. I said, if they have to drive in from Durango, they won't do it because you can't pay the wages for it. And again, everybody knows where Pura Vida is at. It's a great property sitting right there that should take, you know, some of the economy of scale from the marina. So I get, you know, one side of me, about 20% of me says, you know, I really don't want to see, you know, essentially a big housing project built there. And I can tell you, coming from the Midwest, I've seen monster projects like the Wayne Minor Housing Project and the Cabrini Green Housing Project, both of them which were extremely crime-ridden. I think I'm somewhat hopeful to see the presentations today and the written material that was submitted by the nonprofit group here, the Home Fund people, that the deed restrictions will help protect that and not make it public housing or make it so that it's housing vouchers or Section 8 housing, which would kind of bring a lot of other problems with it. So home ownership, I think, is very positive, and you know, applaud what's happened over at Homestead and some of the other areas there with Foxfire too. And again, we helped build some of those houses over there with the habitat projects. So I think you're on the right track here. I think, much like has been echoed by some of the other public comments, I think it's really important to see what it's going to look like. And again, as you guys build something that I think helps complement the neighborhood, hopefully everybody gets a little bit more accepting of the project. So thanks for your time, for the comments.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you, Bruce. Yes.
So I want to echo what Bruce said, that it's just heartbreaking seeing the loss of our middle class and seeing businesses fail because they can't find employees, and employees leaving because they can't find housing. And we're all really, really heartbroken about this. And I also just admire that the town has really stepped up and said, hey, we're going to fix this. But do y'all have what's the plan? Is kind of what I want to know. I mean, I see lots of goodwill, but are you guys going to be the builder?
Well, we're not going to build it ourselves. I'm not going to get a hammer
right,
and sit out there and
right.
build it.
Like
We will
they
hire
sign the
experts
check.
for that kind of thing. So the community will benefit as well, because we're going to
Local
hire a
preference.
local builder to build the property. I
Right.
mean,
We're
So-
not
so
without
it's
expertise on
already-
this board, though.
it's already kind of developed in that, like, it's
It already has a
platted.
plan.
You guys already have the architecture. It sounds like you have paid some money for the engineering, but the engineering and the
That's just gonna-
infrastructure is not in quite yet. But there's a plan for that. And then, are things mapped out as far as how much it's going to cost to
Not
be
yet.
building
Not yet.
these
We haven't got that
units?
far.
No.
So just something that to just take into consideration is that for a unit that is deed restricted, especially if the price is deed restricted and you're limiting the equity that people are going to gain. I mean, equity, that's the primary benefit of home ownership. There are other benefits of home ownership. You know, you get your costs stabilized. There are some tax benefits. Just having the pride of home ownership, like those things matter too. But the primary, but a big benefit of home ownership is the ability to gain wealth. And if you're limiting that ability for people to gain wealth, then they're not going to pay as much as they would for a market rate home. Like people prefer a market rate home over a deed restricted home, and you'll need to discount the deed restricted homes in order for people to accept the deed restriction. And basically you're going to need to discount them. They're going to need to be at least 20% below the market rate. And so, you know, kind of, is there a plan for where that money is going to be coming from?
You know, and I think that you have hit the nail on the head. I mean, where's the difference between what a builder would realize if that was a for-profit built home?
Right.
And, you know, you're not talking to deaf ears here. But this is where, you know, I was gonna ask the question, do you write grants? Honest to God, this is where the money has to come. Because there has to be, you know, one way or another, we have to have a buy-in with the community. Now, I've heard of a couple of other things that are kind of out in the distance that might give us the possibility of a income in a regional housing authority, but those aren't of fruition at this point. But in the long term, that's really got to be where things like that for sustainable, affordable housing has to come from. In the short term, though, we're gonna have to look to things like grants. Be inventive. I mean, any kind of help that we can get to get this done, we're going to use, as long as it doesn't somehow or another negatively impact our ability to get it finished. Now, I do want to speak to a couple other things too, because people seem to think that this board is without expertise when it comes to development, and nothing is further from the truth. I've been a builder, I'm a contractor myself. I'm retired. I've taken projects from an idea all the way through a subdivision project and not been able to get them done because of signatures only. So I know what the process is. You know, we know how this process is done. I mean, Josh has been a county commissioner, a mayor, basically sat on the board of adjustment, do a lot of different things. I mean, just because we sit on a board doesn't mean that we can't find the people that can get the job done. We know where they're at.
And this is why you're here. I mean, that's
We know
completely what we're
We
looking
know where
for.
those people are at. And when we put out a request for proposals or any kind of other thing like that, these people will respond to us. And we understand that profit is a big thing for people to pursue, but we also know that people want to buy into our community. And being able to buy into our community means getting everybody to help create that community. And, you know, for me, being on this board is one way we're creating that community, because we're helping people come to the community that are gonna be able to buy in and feel like they are a real part.
And I think that, I'm glad that I heard you say that the plan is to apply for grants. Right now, there are pros and cons to this point in time. And one of the pros is that there's a lot of money out there. For better or for worse, there's a lot of money slushing around right now at the federal level, at the state level, even at the foundation level, even honestly at the individual level. There's a lot of money, and that has its pros and cons. Is it inflationary? Yeah, probably. But this is not something we can control in this room, right? But one of the cons of this time is that construction costs are really high, and we all have to, we'll have to balance this, right? Like as you're moving forward with this project, there's going to be that balance. I think that there's a bit of a misperception about a lot of developers and builders that they're making money hand over fist. People are seeing the home prices go up and up and up, and they're like, oh, greedy developers. That's why this is going on. And I think that that's largely a misconception. Like people need to make a profit, but it's just expensive to build right now, which is a little bit scary, and I understand concerns about like that being a scary aspect of doing this. But kind of going back to what I said when I first stepped up here, like I think it's awesome that you guys are brave enough to say like, no, we can do this. We have the expertise, we have the need in the community. Let's get some grants written and get it done.
And make some partnerships.
And Homes Fund is here to be a partner with you guys. Like I was saying when I was up here earlier, we're gonna have to talk about a lot of stuff, right? Like
Yeah,
there's a
very
lot.
early in this discussion.
But you guys have a lot done too, honestly. Like the fact that it's already set up, you guys already have the lot line.
We got lucky on that.
Yeah.
I mean, like, honestly.
So I hate having to cut this off. We still have a
Sure.
budget meeting to get through tonight, but I kind of want to just hit on the continuous concerns that we hear in the community. And I think, Ron, if you would like to just maybe set some people at ease you gave a really good presentation on the construction costs. And I would just like you to sum that up for us if you could.
I'm not put anybody at ease, but
Yeah.
let me
Maybe a little bit.
let me speak about a couple things philosophically and maybe mathematically that are going on, if you will. Philosophically first, that are going on there. Very little of what you're going to attempt here or anything we do in life is accomplished without somebody sacrificing. I'll offer evidence. You want to send your kid to college? You're going to do away with Starbucks coffee 3 days a week. You're going to make some kind of a sacrifice to make it happen. In this plan, keep in mind, you're going to ask people to sacrifice. The other, maybe a little more mathematically or maybe a little bit philosophically, is when I look at something, I look at the end result of what I want. And I'm going to pick, in your case, one of the 30 units that you'll end up with that are in there. Look and see what you believe that must cost to fit within the boundaries that Lisa shared with you. And I wish her slide was still up on there. I'm going to do some really quick math. Brenda will get a hee-hee out of this. We all do our little thing that are going on there.
No.
If you work 40 hours a week, there's 52 weeks in a year. We all want to be on vacation 2 weeks, and sometimes we're not paid for those. Makes it really easy math. We work 50 weeks a year, 40 hours a week. That's 2,000 hours. Makes the math really easy. When you looked on her board over here for rent that are going on there, if I'm not mistaken, Lisa, you correct me, 2-bedroom rent in Bayfield was $47,600. That means that household's got to be bringing in really close to $24 an hour just to make that happen. So if you can put this thought process in place, take the end result of what you're doing and start backing into that and see where it takes you, if you will, then you'll ask yourself, who's going to make the sacrifices? I'll throw a bone to you that are going on in there. Your sacrifice as this town board may be to waive the building permit fees, might be to waive the tap fees. Those are not actual hard expenses that you had, but it's a sacrifice to make the project happen that are going on. So when I speak from that to do that, let me speak a little bit to building materials that are going on there. And I can talk to you on the 22nd of August and tell you what's happening today, but I can't tell you what's going to happen in the future. We can look in hindsight to do that. I've had a building project that I've been looking at doing, so I picked a particular product to watch to see what was going on with building products. And that product that I needed some of was studs for a wall. Dave will appreciate that. 2x4, 8 feet long. Sometimes they're pre-cut to 92 and 5/8, right? The Big Orange store, they put theirs on the internet. You can check them every day that are going on there. At the peak of building materials for dimensional goods, that 2x4 was really close to $9 each for an 8-foot 2x4.
Expensive.
They have relaxed some. There's good news and bad news. The good news is they've relaxed some. They are still significantly higher than they were in what I'll call a more normal realm, but they are somewhere in the mid $3 range right now. That's good news for us. Dimensional lumber has relaxed some. Sheet goods, on the other hand, have not relaxed that much. That will be OSB or strand board, wafer board, I know it as. They're going on plywood products, those type of things. They have not relaxed as much. And steel goods have not relaxed hardly any from the peak. So as you look into the future, there may be some timing issues that Brenda brought up about doing that you're going to say, maybe this is not the time. If we were having to make that decision in August of 2021, we might go, wait a minute, this is not the time to build that, based on the fact that overall building costs are still relatively high. But we got a ways to go here. We've got all this infrastructure to figure out that are going on, and I appreciate the contract that you did with them that was staged, so you can spend a few $1,000s to get going. If the next step needs to happen, it's a few more thousand. Yes, the tally at the end of the day is $85,000 if you go the distance, but you have checks and balances in there. You did a good job, in my humble opinion, on that. So, with that said, if we continue to see a relaxing of prices, it's in our favor to do that. If we can't see a relaxing, then we have to ask who's going to sacrifice and how much. And again, we're back to the partners that are in the room. I've heard Chris at the Economic Alliance give the same thoughtful and encouraging thought processes that are going on. So with that, I'll let you move to your budget. Thanks.
Chris.
Yes, Chris, please.
I'll just say I keep following really tough acts to follow, so I'm gonna keep this super brief. I just heard the need, though, and that's my job. And I totally concur with what Lisa was saying. I think where do you go from here? You have so many pieces in place, right? One of the things I think we talked about is like an RFQ for a developer. As an example, you probably don't want to be the developer, but how do you identify, how do you find that developer? Pagosa wasn't able to recently, so there's challenges that. I just want to offer 2 grant resources, and do I maybe email them to Katie to share with
Yes,
the rest? So I mentioned the SHIP TA program that CHAFA has. We have round 1 that will be due September 10th, where we basically have affordable housing consultants on retainer already. That it's like literally a 2-page application that'll be due September 10th. You can look at it, whereby we would offer some of these pre-development services such as the financing or the performance for this project, this specific development. Maybe that might be a need, so I'll share that with you. DOLA also, I just saw it, I have not dug into it, but DOLA just came out with also some pre-development grant monies too. I think there's some ties to that with your local zoning codes that either you have to change the codes or your codes may already meet some of these like affordable housing criteria, but I will share both of those grant resources with you. I know ours is due September 10th. I don't know about DOLA's, but opportunities to consider you may want to apply for and see if that helps.
This is why you're here too today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You know, and we need to move on to budget. I'm sorry this went over. I know we could talk about this for days, and this won't be the last work session we have talking about housing. But the last thing I just, I want to address the issue of the lack of transparency, because that one bugs me the most, and no public education. We've reviewed our minutes, we have gone back and we've looked at comments, and we did everything that we we did it right. And like I said, we have our legal team here that will, back us up on the process. I know Katie was calling the paper to try to get a story done in April. I know I announced it at the Alliance Investor meeting in April. There was a Facebook post about what we were doing, and maybe blame it on COVID. We weren't getting people in the room. We weren't getting people to Zoom in. But people did know about this project. I own the local watering hole. I know how much people were talking about this project. So that one bugs me to think that we lack transparency on that. So I just, I don't know if there's any other comments from the board on that one before we move on to budget, but.
Well, I was so excited about it. I was talking to everybody I saw. I mean, I was just, I don't know.
Sewer fund?
Borrowing money from the sewer fund is not right. I'll say, show us the documentation that that's not right, that we couldn't do that. But, the sewer fund is an enterprise under Tabor, and it was appropriate to borrow funds out of there, and we have paid back.
And I've been a part of this board where we borrowed money from that fund before. So that's not something that threw a red flag at me as a board member.
So, and I think last but not least is this idea that the board allowed staff to bully him and push him around for a decision.
If you knew me, you would never say that to me. Just saying.
Completely false. We are free thinkers, and for people to say that we're not, that one kind of hurts as well, along with the transparency. But
I do like consensus.
Yeah, we do. At the end of the day, our job up here is to solve problems and to address the concerns of the citizens of Bayfield. And unfortunately, if you're from Forest Lakes, we love to hear your comments, but we can't. At the end of the day, you're not one of our constituents. So I'm just gonna leave it at that, and we're gonna move on to budget.
Wait, I have one last thing, because we didn't mention it. We did a housing study in January, and SEH did that to us. Their final recommendations say affordable housing will become an increasing concern for the town if supply is not increased. They made recommendations that we should prioritize housing projects, and that is kind of what kicked off the ball with this in the first place, and that housing study can be provided to anybody that would like a copy.
Okay, and like I said, this won't be the last discussion we have with housing. We'll have several more of these for the public. But at this time, I would like to go ahead and move on to our budget work session. And it's riveting information if you want to stay, but thank you so much for coming out. Okay, take a 3-minute pause for the cause.
My pen, leaked all over me. Oh, by the way, I decided we're not wearing the same pants you're wearing.
Oh, I saw that too. Thank you. All right, you guys ready for budget? What do you have?
My favorite numbers.
Kristen had to run to the restroom real quick. I might need some more water. Okay. We just have all kinds of extra.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment too, sir.
Oh, more penises. I'm so tired of seeing them everywhere too, I agree.
Are they painting them or are they?
They're spray painting them everywhere. I worked at a high school.
Not one to hang around the skate park. I didn't know
I
that.
didn't know it either. I'm like,
I see it every morning.
see you later.
And up on
I
the,
concur.
yeah, well,
So maybe we need to be
I
out
don't
there
mind- I don't
faster
mind-
with some
I don't
paint to
mind
paint
wall
over
art.
it. Huh?
I don't mind wall art. I think that's.
At
in
first I
fact,
thought.
We're probably gonna have that down here.
At first I thought he was talking about the Bayfield mural that we
Thank you,
just
Michael.
did. I was like, seriously?
Yeah.
And then
Michael, thank you.
thank you, Mike.
Thanks, see you later.
And then he said what it was and it was like, okay, that's not it. I should throw this pen away before it ends up with ink
Oh,
on
you have it
anybody
bad?
else, yeah.
You a baddie?
That's all they can find.
My house, we're leaking.
God, are there any more chocolates in there?
I know. Is I would have
Oh, really?
It needs to be done.
What happened to our chocolates?
I don't know where the 32 came from, and obviously it's been a while since I as well.
I don't want chocolates in front of me. Don't put them in front of me. not.
Yes. Hand them out, hand them out.
After my own heart.
Trying so hard not to eat badly.
I don't know anything. Josh and I are definitely gonna have to share these.
I don't know, so I don't know where he got the 32, I don't know where he got, I'm sorry.
Something to keep the blood sugar up.
Just one.
Thanks, Mayor.
We only have.
Thank you for feeding the fat cells.
Now that are using the current leaf rate.
Ooh, they're frozen too.
They are.
Thanks.
I meant that about the bullying thing.
I figured our,
That's right.
The girls in school, high school.
Because
that
she's
bullied
got
me
some authority to hand out.
Oh. They bullied you in school?
Okay, you guys ready?
Yes.
Josh is coming.
Oh, gosh.
I was bullied, but it took like 7 guys.
Me too, I was bullied for being smart.
Important. We're talking about budget.
Good directions. You know? What does it address everything?
I know, there was a couple of things I think,
I know, this is like the most important part.
there's more opportunity.
Budget. So that was his gig. He took everybody else's numbers and compiled them every year.
I didn't watch this YouTube video.
I didn't either.
State board.
What, you did do that?
There's a link to a YouTube video on there.
Yeah, I didn't watch it.
I was being facetious.
So, I'm like, did you see it? Did you watch it?
No.
He,
Oh my god, we have to go through all this tonight?
stuff like this, and it's different than
We're just waiting on Josh,
Slow.
I think.
It has
Nope,
a pace.
and Kelly. Kelly's here.
Oh, it's not getting diverted, so, the ditch is overflowing, okay?
Is that what
It happens every year.
Okay. Just this
The
time.
people that own that ditch right there, they don't clean it out, and so it overflows.
which ditch.
It got really bad last year, we got to shut the park down for the people who were in the other house.
That she said is getting bad.
Yeah.
It's like not walkable these days, and so it's some good job.
Where's that? Where's that at, Kelly?
Roadside park?
Oh,
I was just there today.
Was it flooded?
Here we go.
It was fine. It was wet.
Was it?
Mhm.
Marshy.
that can get pretty ugly back
But it was
there in
okay.
a couple spots.
There was like a
Candy.
decent amount of debris and stuff that they were cleaning off of.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So,
I ate one. I'm on a diet too.
We were giving candy
That's why I'm
right
eating
over here.
cheese crisps.
You have to know the,
Oh, yeah,
so,
okay,
don't
now
like
we're
those.
I
talking.
do.
sugar
get some treats.
I liked like one
yeah.
or two of them and then I went over them.
I did not do
Seriously
the
go
written
for the
test yet.
almond
So
joy.
I have to
I just
still,
ate an
that
almond
for the
joy, and I
national
was like, I'll
register.
leave the other one
I
here
did, I
just
finished
for
the,
Jason,
the
but he likes
class,
You
and
rock.
I passed the class
We're both
2 tests,
left-handed
and I
and
passed,
I know
passed
this
the one
is
national register
getting
test,
too
and I
strange.
have to do the written
Don't
exam. I'm
wear
gonna try to go on
masks.
Saturday, but. To do what? For the EMT national exam that I have to take.
All right, Katie, you ready?
Get that.
I'm ready.
We're ready. We got
I'm ready.
chocolate.
And just make sure this is on.
Now we're all wired.
All right, so I just wanted to make sure I didn't print out, I printed out on the back of the agenda, the goals. I just want to make sure that we're kind of all on the same page. The Board of Trustees, they came out sharing the number 1 priority was housing development and broadband. Mill Street, right, and the rest of them are not in any particular order, but they're numbered anyway. Mill Street revitalization, Dove Ranch stormwater development, stormwater management throughout town, roadside park restrooms, 24/7 town marshal deputy coverage, school resource officer, senior center commercial kitchen use, the farm proposed by Pine River Shares, and access to the river. Is there anything that I missed, or is there anything that shouldn't be on the list?
No?
No, it looks good to me.
priorities.
Finance Department, competence, reliability, continuity, and professional reporting. I just put this down, didn't even ask Kathy.
That's what we're going for.
Marshal's Office Department accreditation through CSAP and still not updated the new process. So I don't know if you're aware of any other goals.
He's shaking his head
for
no.
20 Yeah, you're on the spot.
Yeah.
Products, like the stuff that's supposed to be on the bike?
No, just goals.
Oh,
Goals.
Yeah, the accreditation was one of the top ones. The 24/7-hour coverage is one, and the school resource officer program.
Oh, yeah, school
So we nailed it.
So those are all
Okay.
covered. Sweet.
Parks and Recreation, implement the park master plan phases, increase staff to properly manage properties, programs, and people. We're good, I guess. Okay. Anything else to add, Becky? Public Works, wastewater treatment, manage the 5-year INI hydraulic program, prepare for nitrate, phosphorus, regulated limits with administrative extension. That's a handful, but I know what it means. Or a mouthful.
Have we done any I&I work this year at all?
No, the funding really will not, your funding won't really go into place until next year.
Oh,
You're
okay.
collecting it right now.
Oh, okay.
Water, continue adjudication efforts. Streets, develop asphalt management plan for preservation, repair, replacement. And we probably get a quote from SGM to actually put that together. I think that's critical. Or you're just guessing and the loudest citizen will get their street done, and that's really not what you want to do. You also want to preserve. It's a lot cheaper than rebuilding, so.
I think we should do Josh's street.
No, well,
Well, actually, I was going to
It is
ask
probably
about,
the most needed.
about in Public Works, I know it says streets, but it says develop a plan. We were also going to do paving, right? So, I mean, shouldn't that be in there as far as something that we're going to accomplish in 2022?
so that would be asphalt management, but I can just put replacement, and includes paving.
Well, all it says is develop a management plan, and so that's what I thought was going to happen, was you're going to develop a management plan for this, as opposed to the actual hands-on, we're going to do some paving.
You can do that. So that would just be a
Yeah, I
number
think
4.
it'd just, it'd just,
Number
help.
4. Town clerk participating in training. I think it was difficult when I came here. I realized that there was not much training for staff, especially administrative staff. And so I think it's going to be, if COVID list and Cassell is available to go on site, our goal is to make sure that there's training. Any comments on that one?
No, I think the entire department needs training, the entire admin staff.
I would say after working somewhere and receiving the in-person training from the software company when they flew them in from South Dakota or wherever they came from, it was so helpful to have the person in front of you and you can pull up the account that's giving you issues and they can sit there with it. I think it's paramount that you guys are able to get
I
those people
agree.
here.
I had an in-person training program for my drawing program, and it made all the difference in the world to have somebody right there that understood all the little parameters that you were dealing with. And, it's one thing to be able to get onto a computer. It's a whole other thing to understand the software you're using.
Yeah, if you expect people to do their jobs, you should train them.
Totally.
Town manager, continue to revise the municipal code as inconsistencies arise. We will keep working on the sewer portion that we created, that new article. Seek funding to replace the current land use code. There's a couple times I've taken that whole land use code and I would just like to throw it in the trash. The grant that's available through DOLA is a great grant to update the housing. And Marion from the COG, we talked today that maybe we take a look at, just like we did sewer, we create a new article and create a, that is instrumental in improving developers doing housing, and then start taking a lot of that land use code processes. And, you've asked about who approves a use by review. Why does only the planning commission get a variance for setbacks? I mean, there's a lot of things that doesn't really make any sense, so I keep kind of adding things that I think should be in protection of the developer, not just the town. So, anyway,
One can of
it's
worms
gonna
at a time.
take, my guess, it would be $75,000 to $80,000 to really redo the whole code. You could get administrative grants. Marion's idea is to do some little switcheroo with some grants that we have the eligibility to apply for and the COG could apply for. So we'll keep working that direction to see if...
I was having a conversation today with the representative here from Century League, and, we're doing this loop around the town with ClearWorks, and he was talking about some of the technology associated with that, as opposed to having a hard link into homes, that they'll be able to utilize 5G technology. And I got to thinking about that, and I says, well, geez, why didn't the library get into this business? Because they're a lot larger geographical area than is the town, and then these 5G towers could be put in places like Vicedo or all around Forest Lakes and things like this. But that's just throwing that out there as a thought, just in the discussion that I had today.
Yeah, and the last one is coordinate with agencies to fund workforce housing development and update policies, codes, and budget documents to address the town's workforce housing operation. I mean, it's a big thing. You have some site development work going on, and in the meantime, hopefully we have a broadband grant we can wait for and some other things, but there's no shortage of things to do. So I would like to get out of the custodian business, hopefully in the next week or so, so we can really concentrate on those goals. Anything else you would like to see added, subtracted?
Let me ask a couple questions. First, with the Board of Trustees, would it be helpful to you if we prioritize that list instead of just saying,
Yes.
here are 10 things we want you to do?
These are 10 things you're gonna do.
Oh, these are things
Yeah.
we're going to do.
I would love to have them prioritized, because you threw them out as one trustee at a time, and I'm not gonna be the one to
Right.
prioritize them, so would love to see that.
Okay, so we can talk about that among ourselves. And then, this came up subsequent to the last meeting we had about this, was a meeting you and I had last week. And one of the things we were talking about was the water adjudication process and things associated with that. I think it would be good to put that on a list here someplace to just kind of understand, so I understand, maybe the board understand. I think it'd be good for the board to understand a little better about what we're doing, how we're doing it, should we be doing it, how should we modify it, what do we get from it? Because everybody talks about, we got the adjudication process.
I mean, could that be something that we sneak into a work session at some point?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, one can of worms at a time. I know that's our new
Right,
motto here.
yeah.
But
Those are, not to put any more on your plate, but after our conversation the other day, I thought that's something we really should.
Well, I'm thinking that we
pursue.
need a water adjudication update and your response to the direction we're going, because, and I think that's gonna probably be a staff issue first, and then we'll bring that to the council, based
Yeah.
on what we think. I mean, water work session is not gonna be a short one, so.
No. Okay, thank you.
So, anything else you want to see added, subtracted? And you'll prioritize by next meeting. Our next meeting's the 7th of September. So think about that. I'll bring that back for your prioritization work. The marshal got his capital improvements in here a little late, so I'll just go over those. I'm sorry, I forgot to print those out. But the K-9 was the first thing on the list. I have been a town manager where we have had a K-9 unit. So there's a price for the dog. There are scholarships to purchase the dog. The equipment includes all vehicle equipment, training, handling is $77,000, and then the yearly cost is $1,500. And typically, the handler is also got a stipend of some sort because it becomes part of their household. But that does assist with liability insurance as well, that you're providing some form of shelter, I should say, shelter and home for the K-9.
Excuse me, have we been, has this come before the board before for funding on, because this is really the first time I'd heard about a dog. And had that come before us, or?
I am not aware of that.
It is not.
No.
This is the first time.
No.
Okay.
Deputy Abdella says no.
Who's gonna get the dog?
What's that, ma'am?
Who's gonna get the dog?
I don't know.
If you get it.
That's probably
If you get your dog.
cable.
So, your input,
What's that?
your input,
I guess I would just need to have it justified,
it's fine.
you know, why we're doing it, what it means,
Well,
how
I-
it helps us.
I do know that,
I like it.
you know, the ability to search somebody's car is a little bit difficult for police officers to do. They have to have cause and agreeance from the people, but if a dog walks around and says there's drugs in there,
Dog
you
creates
now
cause?
have your reason to get into the car.
The dog creates cause? Okay.
I watched an incident with Deputy Sear and Deputy Campbell one evening, and a dog would have been very helpful in that incident.
If am I allowed to speak?
Yes.
Of course,
Yep.
please.
Okay. If anybody has followed recently, the last year or so, with the marshal's office, our drug issue has become a major problem. And not only the security and searching and assisting the officers with a canine, just the ability for a dog to get into a car and sniff those things out. And we're hitting some big stuff now without a dog. But the liability and the credibility that a canine builds for cases and prevents the flow of drugs in and out of our community, because we are, if you guys don't know, you probably do, we're a freeway for
Oh,
Denver
absolutely.
to New Mexico. And it's not stopping, unfortunately. And so there's another item that's probably coming up, that's mentioned in there is a spectrometer that I'll probably talk about a little bit, but any tool that we can get, that can manage that flow, and help us curb that, I think is something that really needs to be considered. It is a patrol dog, and a canine dog, so it's a sniff dog. Plus it'll also go along with the schools, which has been a huge problem pre-COVID, of everything from marijuana, vaping, you know, even up to the methamphetamine level. The dog will be able to be used in the schools, to assist the school district in, you know, dealing with a drug problem that's growing at that level. I can't stress enough that can't think of a single thing that there's a negative for this, for the community.
I think it bridges a gap too with us not having that school resource officer this year too.
Yeah, that's a
And for the
good
whole county,
point,
we only
Kristen.
have 2 dogs.
Yeah. I worked at Riverview
Oh,
Animal
seriously?
Hospital, so I worked with those particular dogs too, and it's a really neat experience to see, and they would come in and do trainings with us to just show exactly what those dogs are meant to do and how to treat them, and it's a really neat experience.
I know most of the departments that have dogs here and back home in California, they usually partner with the local vets, that will do cost sharing for the
Yep.
upkeep, the shots, even
Yep.
at the food level.
Yeah,
So
Riverview
it
Animal
takes-
Hospital does all that for the
It does
2
take a
current
while.
canines. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
No, I mean, I'm a fan, and I think the board's usually on board when we can make your lives easier and safer. We'll always take it into consideration.
So I'll skip the next two, the spare duty handgun, rifle, shotguns, there's 2 each.
Yeah.
I have a total of 2723, I'm assuming that's 4-2, or is that 2 each?
That's 2 of each.
Okay. Additional handheld LiDAR units is $1,600. I don't see any reason to discuss that any further. That can be actually in their actual budget. And then the True Narc handheld narcotics analyzer for $29,000.
Can you kind of enlighten us on that?
Yeah. What is that?
Absolutely. So, for those that don't know what fentanyl is, it's pretty much a drug that's cranked out by the cartels, and it's 30 times deadlier than heroin, and it's ingested through skin contact, and it looks like a regular aspirin. And the scary thing, if you haven't watched the news, there was 2 police officers in San Diego that just touched it, and they're going into seizures and ODing. And I won't get into the breakdown of how it's made. It's just, you don't know what you're getting with that drug. And that's just one of thousands that are being made. And the True Narc, what it does is it basically shoots a laser at the product, whether it's a bag, a spoon, the drug itself. It breaks it down to its molecular level in a handheld unit that's about the size of your camera. And it will give a digital readout of what exactly is in that. So that not only protects the officers, but anybody that comes in contact with it in the community. If a kid comes across something at the playground, there's that. And it also aids in the liability and the prosecution side of any narcotics that are seized at any level. So hand in hand with the dog, I mean, it's just a great way to go. So.
Well, I asked you to justify it, and you did. Thank you.
So if you have any other questions, I can
No,
go
that was
into more
good.
detail.
We'll keep it in there. So we've got the full marshal's office request, or will remain in the capital improvement portion for now. The 2 smaller ones we may just put into operations as supplies.
Yeah.
The next one under the kind of the big pages, the admin under document management. We have come a long ways in getting rid of the paper. And Jill has done a great job of basically, the other day we were looking for something for Isaac Fleener, and we found it in less than a day. So that's just because she kind of knew where to look, but it would be great if we started a document management system that actually puts those in order, and we could find it, we could give that to the public. It's more of a easier access to the documents that we have. And that would also, you did approve money to scan those large plats that are upstairs. We have a lot of commercial building products, so we could actually scan those, and those would be available as well for somebody that's looking to update their commercial building. But we do have to keep those permanently, so. We do have some household plans as well, and I have decided to keep the household plans as long as they're properly managed. So if somebody's looking for their old household plans, we'll see what's there. But we are not required to keep those permanently. So the next 2 are the Joe Stevenson, the park trail development and river access, and the playground. And I really kind of think if you put these together, I know this is almost, a little over $750,000. And you ask GOCO for a grant, and look for some other funding there's river access and the parks. I think you put these together and submit an application to GOCO, hoping that possibly they're funded. Engineering is usually 50-50 funding, and then the actual construction is usually 80% is funded by GOCO. It doesn't hurt to try a grant for these as a unit, and of course then sending Becky to kind of put together the highlights of what this will do and I know we're calling it Joe Stevenson Park right now. And we're still researching Mr. Stevenson, but.
What is the POSTR poster master plan? What is POSTR?
I'll ask Becky. I'm sure it's an acronym for the park.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an acronym for the park, and to be honest, I don't remember.
There you go.
Oh, yeah, parks, open space, trails, recreation.
There it is. Thank you. Can we go back to number 7, the Bolo wrap?
That was,
Can-
that was already.
Can we have a demonstration of that on David?
Hey, I'll stand up here right now. You wanna wrap me up?
Yeah, well, it works.
Can I run out that way, or do you want me to run
Yeah,
down?
right.
Doesn't work on the mouth.
I thought
I
that you,
can't run real fast, so it's gonna be real easy shot.
I thought part of the night out, were you guys going to do some sort of demonstration with it?
Yes.
Yep.
September 8th.
Right after you
All right.
bolo wrap, you
get through this.
tease me.
Yeah, that was last year, Josh.
Last year, Josh, we're looking at the gray column.
The bear-proof trash can, I think what Becky's trying to do is keep these updated in the parks. And I think that makes sense versus, just having whatever is out there to not pick up trash or trash. Also, the park benches and picnic tables is just kind of continue to update those. I think that's really important, so you don't have to update them all at once. There's nothing else on that page. The budgeting software, we have been, town clerk Cathcart and I, we've looked at a couple of budgeting softwares. A lot of these software systems are very incremental and coordinate basically capital improvements. They coordinate with the public works, the parks, basically keep that part of our financial system. I think that as many projects as you have, and even if you start doing a housing project, I think this would be very significant software to have. We're not going to be able to do the 2022 budget, but we would start working on it and have it available for the 2023 and probably start financial statements sometime mid-year. The senior center commercial kitchen upgrade, this is the repair of the hood compliant with the fire code. I've heard what is wrong with it, but we really need to get somebody to inspect it and tell us what's wrong with it. But I am aware that these hoods are not cheap, and they're not usually cheap to repair. So this is just a guess. If you're interested, we would probably look for at least somebody to take out and come do an inspection in the next month, just to give us a better idea.
That would be
That's
good.
just this is just a ballpark, just to put something.
Yeah,
in.
let me reach out to somebody on that one.
Okay.
Katie, I have a question for you. So this commercial kitchen it's been used as a commercial kitchen in the past, correct or incorrect? Like, has it had a health department inspection for proper everything?
Not in.
It's got a food license.
Okay.
And so from our understanding that there are certain things that don't work. And I just met with Martha Johnson today, and she is going to get back to me what she may be aware of that does not operate.
Okay.
But it's one of the newest, cleanest kitchens commercial
spectacular,
kitchens I've
honestly.
seen. Well, maybe not the cleanest, but it is definitely unused equipment, and it's pretty expensive equipment as well. The other thing is the senior center storage access to provide storage for the senior citizens, public access to general cleaning supplies, and relocate a couple secure doors. I think that we can do a couple construction projects in that senior center to just make it a better flow for the seniors themselves, better storage, so that they have a place to store it in. And I'm going to be very I'm going to manage the fact of what they store and what they don't. Right now, they have already admitted they need to throw some things out, not only out of the office, but they themselves are going to do some organization. So Monica McKinney, our assistant, is right now helping us to decide what to send to the Salvation Army or to the Goodwill or to whoever.
I took the tour. Let me tell you, there's there's some.
But there does need to be some kind of better flow in there for just the warming kitchen, just the senior center, or the full facility at one time. And I think I've kind of taken a look at some, I mean, it's $20,000, but I think that will handle some of the things. It's commercial. You got commercial doors, and you got to make sure you have the commercial lining, the quick, easy clean.
Surface stuff, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what to call it. Stainless steel surfaces. Any concerns on that one?
No, I think anything that makes that center better for our seniors is money well spent.
So the fleet truck, Becky's here.
Yeah, Becky.
It does not run anymore.
What truck doesn't run?
The F-250 is not working right now. We are waiting on a diagnosis on it, but we are thinking that it's a head gasket.
And like, you've been Band-Aiding these for years, right?
We've never had we've been Band-Aiding these for years, and like I said, they're all like, every department's hand-me-downs. When they didn't work for them, they gave the department back. So we're just continually trying to fix them and go with it, so.
So is your plan to, I mean, you're looking for a new truck? One new truck?
Yeah, one new truck. And
Not
with
3
a
old
plow.
beaters?
No.
Oh, okay. Oh, with a plow?
Well, we already have the plow.
Oh, okay.
But- And to be honest, the truck came in at 42, we bookmarked it at 50, just, for safety there.
And that's gonna be enough for you guys to get around?
Yeah, it's the exact same truck that Public Works is looking into, it's just a different bed style, so
Okay.
ours comes in slightly cheaper.
So 42,000, I can change that, I can
Please.
reduce that to 42.
I can give you the exact price tomorrow.
So the next thing is a Toolcat utility work machine. You may remember that the RTV has broken down and it can't be repaired. I did work in another community that bought a Toolcat, and they say that's the best thing that they ever bought because it does almost everything that you need it to do. This is the government discount
Ooh.
at 65,000.
They're expensive, so.
Yeah.
It was originally 80.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then they can do snow blowing too.
Right.
Oh, and they've got a little front loader you can put on them, and a
There's
little
all
dump
kinds of
truck
things,
on the
yeah.
back. And no, they're a handy little tool. They're pricey, my God.
Yeah.
But
And another thing too, if like we're worried about the 65 and we can just ease into it, I included the plow on it, so it's coming right now with a bucket and a plow. The bucket's relatively cheap. The plow is like, I wanna say about 9,000.
Uh,
So if you want to,
what-
we can take out the plow and get it maybe in following years too, we can kind of.
What plowing do you do?
So we plow the senior center, all the trails, town hall, Eagle Park, and then you guys also talked about how Public Works plows all those bike paths in town. The snow plow would give us the ability to assist Public Works in plowing those by
Well,
using the snow blower.
You're saving $8,000 on your truck, so
Yeah.
Smart lady.
Include your.
still you'll come up
include your
another
plow.
$1,000. So where are we?
So.
you don't need a snow blower. You don't need a snow blower. A snow plow, yes, a snow blower, probably not.
How do you say that?
Huh? Because there's a big difference. A snow blower is a device for blowing snow. It requires a power takeoff. A snow plow just attaches to the front of the vehicle and pushes it off to the side. It's a lot simpler.
So
And the
technically
thing
not a
too
snow
is that if I'm not mistaken, these those little Bobcat units have an arm on the front that goes up and down. And if it has a plow attached to it, then that's almost as good as a snow blower anyway.
So depending on how much snow we get, those RTVs, we really struggle with pushing the wet snow off of any paths in town.
Well, I understand that.
So
No,
the snow blower
I
just assists
I
with that.
understand that completely. But that's when you say, well, snow's really, really wet, maybe we ought to use the truck.
On the path?
On the paths?
Yep. You can fit, let's see. I've been taking care of the Fox Farm path for, since Fox Farm's been there.
So we have
I
a,
use a little tractor, has a front loader on it, that works, doesn't need a snow blower. And I'm telling you right now, if you had a snow blower, it's not gonna work as well as a front loader or a plow. It will not. I'm telling you that right now. That's just me. you know, I'm.
So I am aware, in Grand Lake, they did get the snow blower, and they are, happy because it does blow the snow off into the area so that you're not dealing with the, furrows that the plow creates. It actually assists with blowing the snow, away from the trail, keeps it from melting onto the, trails, and of course, we have a parking lot too, where
If we needed a snow blower that bad, I would suggest we get a Unimog.
Get a
Because-
what?
A Unimog. I mean, it's a German tool.
I mean, this is a total package here, David. It's,
A Unimog is a very
I-
total package, believe me.
Does it cost $9,000?
No, about 90,000.
All right,
Well,
let's
the-
go with the
okay.
65,000 with the
Is that
snow
what they're
blower
street
then.
sweepers?
But, you know, I'm just being realistic
Okay,
here. I mean, we don't need a snow blower.
well, I mean, I think that's Becky in the trenches every day saying that she would like one. So,
I'm just saying you don't need one, but that's me.
Well,
I'm
duly
one
noted.
I'm one voice
Where's
out of
that?
7 up here, so.
Duly noted.
okay.
Number one mind.
We have Parks Landscaping Materials, a senior center security system. We would like to get some cameras down there, interior and exterior for
Yes.
us. The landscape materials is just basically an annual, anyway, it's in here for 2022. Infield softball material, maybe Becky can explain that. And then we do need internet down at the park shop, and that will help with some of our security.
That's what I was gonna ask, is there, are there any security needs at the shop?
So we
Yeah, what about
actually,
lighting?
we're on the agenda to get security installed probably in the
Oh,
next,
great, okay.
hopefully a couple weeks down
Okay.
there. Right now, the way we're gonna do it is just through the DVR, but we do need internet for Mark to check email and things like that, so.
Okay.
What about lighting out that way? You got good enough lighting?
That is part of it, we're gonna get
Okay.
some floodlights as well, yep.
Could those just be proximity lights that would come on if they detect things,
Yeah.
rather than being on all the time?
Yeah, motion detection.
Becky, since we are having vandalism over at that skate park too, and I don't see it going away, what do you think we should do there?
I mean, we can get motion detection lights over there. I don't know if that's really gonna deter.
Or even put up like a fake camera. I know that's it. I know that seems stupid, but it would really could seriously deter some people, especially teenagers.
We can definitely do that.
Oh my god.
I mean, they make a,
Park is a disaster. It's-
Yeah.
Why make it fake?
Just make it real. Sorry.
yeah.
No, have at it.
Why make it fake? Just
No, I agree.
Yeah.
money that if
Yeah.
we're gonna do it.
I think there's,
I agree.
I mean, they have some that are, they're motion activated and they run off of, they're like solar. I mean, I have one out behind the bar and I can watch it on my phone. And they're not
Frustration is we can't
expensive.
ever
Yeah.
Catch 'em.
Yeah,
foresee anything.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Even behind
Yeah.
the rodeo grounds, it's the same thing.
Yep.
Behind where?
The
Rodeo
grounds.
Oh,
That
yeah.
whole area.
Oh, yeah, that's kind of
Yeah, it's
secluded down there.
Yep.
Yeah, I see things happening down there that shouldn't be happening down there from time to time.
So we'll take a look at the skate park as well. I don't, we'll get some,
even if-
estimate on that one.
And plus, if we're gonna put in this giant, improvement to Joe Stevenson Park,
That
I
could
feel like
just
we
be
should be somewhat
included in.
prepared
Okay,
for
you put that in
viewing
there.
it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Put that
actually,
in there. The security system in with your grant.
we have big poles already over there to
Yeah.
put cameras on.
There is electricity on one of the poles out there.
Okay, good.
Reminds me,
Good deal.
electricity on the pole.
Okay, so that's the end of the general fund, which includes the marshal's office, administration, and parks and rec. So anything else that you see that we've missed, that you want to reconsider? You'll see some other expenditures for 2023. We're still trying to make this more comprehensive, but we got a ways to go.
Are we
Alright.
just looking at, HVAC in this building here, how, do we want to put it off another year?
I think I would put it off another year, so that we can get some clear guidance on what we need to do. The HVAC from the GARS, who comes out and does maintenance, they've done a lot of research into the HVAC here at Town Hall, and they've determined that, and they have emails to prove this, is that at one point, they rescinded the service agreement, and the service agreement included a computer basically to manage the heating and cooling and temperature of in Town Hall. And so when they rescinded it, the manufacturer said, "Are you absolutely positive? Because there won't be any, you can't come back." And so the computer that managed the heating and cooling was disposed of because it was rescinded. So it's a real challenge to figure out heating and cooling. And of course, when I first got here, everybody had a under-desk individual heating unit, which, in my experience, I know they take a lot more energy than just to properly heat and cool a building.
And they're dangerous.
So next year, I'd like to just really kind of understand what's going on.
I mean, and I think, it's clear to me that something is of an issue, because you come in here sometimes and it's way hot or way cold. So I've kind of felt like the old Durango High School.
So we're in the sewer fund. Basically, the sewer collection line replacement. This is actually from last year, and I don't expect Corey to necessarily know what this is, but it was in for $100,000 in last year's for 2022, and I'm thinking that this I&I replaces it. Some of the cammering that we will do. So it's a matter of talking with Jeremy to find out if that was the intent. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna put a Jeremy question on this one.
I know we'd had that, we talked about it a little bit, but, because it's been a long time since they've gone through and cameraed a lot of the lines down here on the low end.
So the next one for $198,000 is the I&I fee that you're collecting right now, and the goal is to camera the whole system. And then at some point in a later year, we'll camera it again. But this whole system would be to find out where we're getting I&I into our system. Of course, the goal is to reduce the hydraulics to the plant, so we're treating real sewage and not just irrigation water and whatever else ends up.
Did we kind of give ourselves a 5-year plan on that?
It is a 5-year plan, but you wouldn't like to start where you want to start identifying almost immediately. The Gem Village flow meter, and we will be looking at out of town sewer rates because they do not cover the cost of these lift stations. So it is something we'll be looking at a little bit later in this year before January 2022. The East Court gravity realignment. If you'd like to know more information on these, I think Corey may know more on some of the more the up-to-date or the more recent additions. The biological nutrient removal upgrades needed for CDPHE regulation, and of course this is what we talked about, that these are the types of projects that ARPA money can be used for, and so the max RV park flow meter. the replacement of the pumps and drives. Basically, this is just more parts to make sure that we have parts on, heat and air conditioner. Is this at the, treatment plant?
Yes.
Okay.
Right now, there is no wall heater, portable heaters keep the line from freezing in the winter.
Oh, great.
Oh, it's not, we can't have that.
Lovely.
Enclosed UV at the sewer plant. So it's $29,000. There you have it. And then, of course, they are starting to put in other years for the sewer plant, or the sewer fund.
A question about the Gem Village lift station replacement, which is scheduled for '24 at $914,000. Are we setting, how are we planning for that? I mean, that's a significant hit.
Sewer rates. Out of town, my honest, the way managed out of town taps is they have to pay their way, that the people that live in town should not be paying for the replacement of lift stations. And so you look at this amount, either you at least start collecting money, and then if you have to borrow money from either Colorado Water and Power Development Authority, how they're going to pay it back, because they should be paying for their lift station, and it has created quite a few problems.
Well,
So-
beers are going up now.
No,
So is there a line item that we're dedicating revenues?
We don't have any
We don't have
dedicated
that.
there.
Okay.
This is not the way the town has done, but that's the way we're looking at rates this coming.
Yeah.
Just like the INI is dedicated to INI, it's not dedicated to
Right.
anybody's salary or anything else. It's dedicated to deal with that. So we'll be working on that in the, basically compiling the budget.
Got it, thank you.
when we take in Homestead's sewage, we're basically only responsible for the sewage lines that run from our lift stations over the top of the hill. We're not responsible for any of the
Yeah.
collection inside of Homestead at all, right? We are responsible for Homestead inside?
I don't want to be the chocolate.
We're responsible for the sewer mains inside of, oh,
Yes.
okay. That's news to me.
So the next one is capital improvement, and I typically do not put some of the department capital improvements into capital improvement. We decide kind of what we would like to keep. Capital improvements I would consider would be Joe Stevenson Park, the senior center upgrades, it could be software, some of those things that typically come from the general fund. So next is water, the water storage tank access, regrade the existing roads and add gravel, so that's 20,000. I guess we should start a little bit earlier up some of the other earlier entries. Better water meter and property management. And of course, some of these are put in last year. Increase municipal water rights, so that's not in there. Meter radio read replacements, that has been our goal, to continue to replace water meters. Radio reads. And that is important, sorry.
Were you not gonna go over page 42? We just kinda skipped over it.
Yeah, it's capital, but I just have questions on, like, wayfinding.
Yeah, what happened to that?
I feel like,
I'm all lost.
well, we skipped
just
page
we just
42.
backed
Go back
up.
to 42.
Yeah, we went back to 42.
Sorry.
No problem.
Because I don't feel like we had anything in the plan on wayfinding, did we? I mean, was
Yeah,
there-
well, we were supposed to
Keep
do
going with
actually like another sign at the other end of the town, and then we were supposed to do signs within the town itself, just to make them all match. There was all kinds
Well,
of
we
things
just
we were
haven't
gonna do
gotten
with the
around
wayfinding.
to having a plan to put it all together yet.
So you actually
we
have a
had a
plan.
plan.
You have a
Oh, we haven't
plan.
put it together yet. That's
It's
it.
just a matter of now implementing the
Implementing it.
plan.
Yep, it's just implementing it.
Yeah.
It's
And
just
how much-
very, very expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, you could start out with maybe 50,000 a year and not do a full 200,000, you know,
Yeah.
at a
Yeah,
time.
That's where my-
Yeah, does the 170, like, that takes care of it? Or how much of
No.
that does it take care of, or?
It's so
No,
expensive.
it kind of keeps going on. There's 20,000, 20,000, 20,000. I am assuming that there were smaller signs to be
Yeah.
replaced over time.
Like that big entryway one that we did was upwards of 500,000. So just a
Wasn't that
smaller
much?
sign could definitely take up 170,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Easy.
Okay.
I just don't remember what was next on the plan. I don't remember.
Well, we didn't really that we were trying to budget some smaller ones to get those done before we did the other end. I think it was what we were doing.
And these are interior to the town? I mean,
Yeah,
it's-
like
Yeah,
interior.
the public library or the
Like-
schools or.
That way we
Park,
could
Mill
bring,
I
Street.
know where the library
drag-
is.
Mill
What the hell?
Street.
drag people from 160 to actually see that we had a town here.
Okay, sorry, got off on a tangent. We can go underwater.
So the trail extension is 100% funded by CDOT. Actually, our RFQs are, our deadline is tomorrow. Well, we had 54, about a week ago, we had 54 engineering companies that pulled the plans, or pulled the RFQ, so we'll see what happens.
Cool.
Can we hop back up to the Dove Ranch detention? Was the issue there, part of the issue there, the impact that that drainage has on the ditch? Or was it what was going into the ditch?
Well, first of all, the Clean Water Act, you cannot run stormwater into a ditch.
Okay, that's
That's
what I
part of
wanted
it.
to
And of
know.
course, the Schroeder
And
ditch
we
has
do it all
asked
the
us that we need to pipe it across the Schroeder ditch and the other unnamed ditch and into a detention area.
right.
And your question earlier was, let's get information out about stormwater. Do we want to do a stormwater property tax, sales tax, some type of assessment, impact fee for stormwater? I mean, those are all the things you wanted to do more education on next year.
Right.
Katie, did we spend $200,000 this year on the Dove Ranch detention?
No, we did not.
And then the same thing for the broadband engineer design.
We're working on that.
Okay.
We worked with the tribe to coordinate some things which hopefully benefited our application. I'll tell you what, I think in wayfinding, we'll just find something, get the cost and break it out versus just lump sum it in
Yeah, I
there.
think
I have it.
report with
Yeah, I have it pulled up. I'll just forward it to everybody with all the attachments. But like just an example, so a park identification monument sign, so Joe Stevenson Park, if we did an identification sign out there, $91,000. So it's just really, really expensive. Go ahead.
50,000.
Goodness, how much did that mural cost?
Freestanding directory would
Yeah,
be
let's go paint,
12,000.
go paint the town, it's a lot cheaper.
Right?
Just a vehicular directional sign, $72,000.
How much was the whole
So.
project again?
Oh, gosh, it's a lot.
Where are you buying these signs from? And should we go into business?
Around 800,000.
Yeah.
70. No, even more here.
It must be the
12
aluminum in the
over.
signs.
And the sidewalk repair, we have, Beth is finishing a grant to CDOT, $150,000. That would go to this west end of Mill Street for handicap accessible parking. We'll see if we're successful in the grant, but probably need to increase that to $200,000, assuming we get $150,000 out of that, so.
No, I'm glad we're talking about this because I'd prioritize the sidewalks over a $90,000 sign. Especially if we haven't revitalized downtown yet, we're wayfinding people to, what are we wayfinding them to?
For sidewalks.
No handicap parking.
And really, and we've been warned about poor sidewalks by our attorney.
And then I do have Cinnamon Heights lots 12 through 41. It probably should not be in capital improvement, but I think as we're working with bond attorneys and with Homes Fund and Chaffon, however we go about this, you've got to figure out that you're going to start spending money. And it may not be in this one, but for now, that's a placeholder.
Oh, I thought I was in the sewer fund.
We were borrowing from the sewer fund.
So the first three in here, the 10,000, 10,000, and 50,000 was from last year's assumption that we would be doing this in 2022. Water rights, I have a feeling we're going to continue this. Keep in mind that we pay for Los Pinos's attorney and our attorney in engineer, and we pay for their engineer as well. So there's a lot of double costs, and I really don't see that decreasing. As you heard from Trustee Joswick, you know, some more conversation on water adjudication would probably be a good work session.
How many lines did you, or replacements did you do under buildings so far, under people's? Did you get them all?
The exact number, but I know we did 4 between last week and this week.
Is it going a little smoother?
The most expensive ones were downtown because sidewalk and
Oh, okay.
curb and gutter and our goal is to continue those water meter relocations, probably not replacement.
How many more do we have to do
We had 64.
that you had identified over the course of the?
Yeah, so
lot.
we knocked off, we may knock off 10 off that list.
Okay.
And they're in a variety of different construction, everything from new to old construction, basically.
Well, most of it's old construction.
But you guys have identified the worst offenders and got those, that's what you're getting done
The
this
worst
year.
offenders, I think we've controlled, so
then-
we can do them a lot
why
slower
it's-
and start
okay.
taking it, you know.
Okay, cool.
The regrade the existing roads to the water tank is $20,000. Spare sensors, obviously parts. When Ron talks about steel, we understand what it takes to get steel. Not only is it more expensive, but just manufacturing it because of the freeze in Texas and all kinds of things that have kind of delayed steel manufacturing, so.
Well, we've had that problem even with getting a hold of things like conduit for direct burial for the broadband project that was supposed to start at the top of Wolf Creek, because they couldn't get a hold of the conduit to bury because of production in Texas, there again, going back to last winter.
So I don't see anything just as jumping out at me as any different. The water fund can handle this $237,000 unless there's something else you just really need to think to pull off or add.
No, but I noticed that there's that 1.2 million for a plant expansion that maybe we should have more forethought in putting into the budget rather than just putting it all on 1 year.
Is that 2026?
Yeah,
Yeah.
2023?
Oh,
2023.
Yeah.
So this is
That's true.
actually part of La Plod's increase as well, updating a cell. And so I think we need to work on not only water adjudication, but taking a good look at La Plod's agreement with the town as well. So that's good. I mean, I think we need to look at just gonna make some notes here.
As LaPlade brings on their customers, there's not any issue with respect to the amount of water that needs, or water
Well-
deliveries, is there?
They've done a lot of infrastructure development, so I'm guessing that I don't think it moved as fast as they wanted to, But as wells, there's more issues with wells, people may just start using the domestic water, so, and signing up to get a tap.
But they've got the loop, they got their entire loop done now, don't they? I think.
They're either close or they,
Are you tied in?
mm-hmm,
Okay, so I guess they do.
yep.
All right. Garbage, there's nothing considered in garbage.
Were we gonna review his
Page, what
contract?
page are you on there?
I think it's
Yes.
Okay.
The recycle contract is up at the end of this year, and I do plan to get a proposal from them regarding a recycle. And as you may remember, it went up significantly, what they wanted to do for this year, but the contract we do have is expiring at the end of this year, so.
Tell them to plan it well this time.
Yeah, a better presentation.
Okay. Streets. We are doing 2 culvert in place, or 3 this year. Next year, we have 2 that are planned at culvert Los Pinos at East Oak Drive. That one, and I guess that's the only one, I'm sorry. But as you may remember, that losing a street gets really expensive, so.
Yes.
The resurface at Tamarack, that $398,000 is actually moved to this year, or 2022, because we just could not get down with a new engineer and changing things around. We just kind of missed the opportunity to get a contractor.
Katie, what's the difference between the sidewalks, item 12 here, and then
The capital.
other sidewalks that you said that Beth was getting $150,000 for?
So some of this is just repairs,
Okay.
not necessarily replacement. The one in capital replacement would actually be replacing those 4-foot sidewalks with a 7-foot wide, handicap accessible, curb and gutter
Okay.
type of.
On line item 10,
So why would we replace and repair? We were not gonna repair the same ones we're gonna replace, right?
No,
Okay,
no.
just check.
on line item 10, not to sound self-serving, but it does indicate Los Pinos as a residential street rebuild, but there's no, and I know that Jeremy had said they were going to do that next year, but there's no cost.
2025.
2025, buddy.
You gotta wait.
You got pushed out.
I guess so.
I think we need to move it up. There's a county commissioner that lives on that street now.
That's right. That's right. So I guess Jeremy just misspoke when he was saying.
He said
Well, this
in the
is,
plan, he said, he didn't lie.
In the plane.
it's in the
Well, in
plan.
the plan for 2022, as I remember, it was.
What I really think you need to do is have an asphalt street plan, so you know exactly where you're going and you're using your
That'd be a
money
good idea.
effectively. There's nothing, I think Public Works does a really good job, but a lot of times it can be a little bit subjective. Typically, in my goal is to preserve streets before we have to replace them or rebuild them. So,
Mhm.
Remember at the beginning of the meeting tonight when you said, shouldn't we be putting asphalt on the ground and shouldn't that be a priority?
I said that?
Maybe.
Yeah. So instead of just putting all that money into a plan, well,
Yeah.
let's plan it.
Bricks and mortar, let's get after it.
I like seeing the east intersection out there for following your
For
east,
something in the near future, yeah.
right?
yeah, I have a
East
feeling
intersection, that's,
east,
23.
east intersection, and keep in mind that we got it added to the Southwest TPR, but it's a
It's-
non-funded.
yeah, and it's not funded until
Something with the
like,
school,
and even if
though
they did
had a
fund it,
portion of that
they
had
don't
to
wanna
use
fund
by a
it for
certain
about
time.
another
That's
10
broadband.
years.
That's broadband, okay.
But you do have some annexations that may take place in the next
But
18
the
months.
fact that we have money to throw at that project makes the state listen, because they don't have a lot of partners that come into projects that have $500,000 in their pocket.
But I just want to make sure that you understand that the Southwest TPR put it on the list because it was not on the list as an unfunded improvement. So I understand we may have partners, but we don't have the Southwest TPR on our side yet.
He's behind us, yeah.
And I think that that could change. That's just me.
Still blows my mind we weren't even on the list.
There's a lot of line items here. I know it's getting late, and
Yes, it is.
I'd have to say that we've probably got more capital improvements than we can afford, pretty clearly, especially in streets. So I may have to send Public Works back and say, let's prioritize some of these items. We can't get grants for asphalt. I mean, that's pretty common. We did spend a lot of money on the 4th of July. I do think it's important for us to figure out exactly what those costs are for the 4th of July, for block parties, for, it all looks like it's needed, but on the other hand, it's never been budgeted. I think, I see what your staff has done to make it work, but I think that after a while, you do have to really fund the events that you would like to have. So the cones, barrels, and street signs are in there, and then the easier to set up than concrete barriers, the fillable ones that we used. And I think we borrowed those. So we borrowed those, and so the town would actually buy something of our own, and they're much easier to move.
Becky, how come you're not getting the old worn out truck from? Just kidding.
Jeremy and I are friends.
I see they have an old aged out fleet truck that they could give you.
Which leads to another question. Is there, a methodology whereby we can either, if we have pickup trucks and other vehicles that are in our inventory that we're not using, perhaps we need to just have a public auction and auction those things off.
So you don't necessarily have to have a public auction. There's quite a few. I mean, eBay is a competitive bid. You can actually dispose of equipment that way. And very honestly, I've been surprised because we're not in the Rust Belt, how many, what we can get out of vehicles that end up going to Indiana or Missouri. And people will come pick them up because it's not in the Rust Belt.
Ditch bank down in New Mexico.
So eBay, or there's other more public auctioneers that you put it online and you can sell it that direction.
We just don't need to have the, extra assets laying around that we don't need.
You
I
shouldn't.
know, we have other things up there like that have arrived through Defense Department acquisition, I guess, like that road grader, and there's a couple other things that we use around here, but if they cost us money, we probably shouldn't have them.
Is there any way to, have we talked about like those water-filled barriers and stuff like that? I mean, that was kind of an ask from the Marshal's Department due to people plowing into crowds and stuff like that. I mean, I see a need for that. I understand that that's something that we could probably use in the future. Is there a way to split that with?
There are requirements mandated by state when you have pedestrians out on the road.
Oh, okay.
There are certain requirements you have to meet.
You can't just keep borrowing them from your buddies in Durango?
You can.
No, I know.
So 4th of July, it means that everybody and their brother is having an event. That's where you run it. We were very fortunate to get the VMS signs to say we had an event up. if you're asking it divided up between the marshal's office and other departments, it really comes out of a tax generating fund anyway. So
Right.
it's, it's more about what we cut out of here. And I think, Public Works probably, or Jeremy and Corey basically go through this and say, what can we live with? What do we need to just cut out so that we can kind of get within?
Okay.
That it?
The last one is the equipment fund that you have, and so what we'll do is probably move things like the Toolcat, the fleet truck, the trailer that I saw that was in here. Basically equipment into this fund. If we feel that we still need to have it, it's still a priority to move it into that fund where it goes. So.
So Katie, since I'm not remembering how this process went last year, except I remember there being several meetings, do we see all of these kind of totaled and then what the money is that we have and then how this lines up so that we can make sure that we are prioritizing appropriately? Because all of this looks like things that we need and that I would like to see, but I don't know that this is all something we can afford, and I still don't know what we might be missing. Like right when you said special events, I was like, wow, yeah, that probably should be in here somewhere. So is there a way to kind of see so that we can provide more feedback?
So I always call this budget sessions. There's the sweet session.
Okay.
There's the sweat session.
Okay.
There's a sucky session. And then there's a stinking session when we really have to cut things out to put everything together. I think what's really good to have your vision and goals. Okay, we got that somewhat set. We're going to prioritize your 10 or the 9 that are left over.
Yeah.
You see capital improvements. I'm seeing where we have to really send department heads back. But you need to at least see what they asked for.
Yeah. 'Cause I would
Send
definitely
them
like
back
know
to
what are
see,
the
you need to cut
musts.
it down to $675,000 or something. We have to make those requests. You're gonna see labor, and it's all gonna look great. Just about the time that next session, you'll see them starting to put together with the operations.
Okay.
Then it doesn't look so great anymore.
No. I just, looking at these, I would just love to know, like, Becky, you have to have this, otherwise things are gonna be failing. Versus, I would love to see that Parks and Rec Trail thing happen, but that might not be a must-have because it's one of the more expensive. But that's what I would like to see, but what do you need?
It really
'Cause
puts
it's-
accountability back on department heads to look for grants.
Okay.
In the case of Joe Stevenson Park, there are grant opportunities, and based on some of the other things we talked about tonight, there may be grant opportunities for some of the other things. One thing you can't really find grant money for is streets. Asphalt's been the toughest thing for any community I've ever worked in. There's just no grants out there.
But we also then, considering safety, so the sidewalks and streets that need to be repaired, so that's where it's kind of like, this is a lot of info.
Yep.
So, good, so there's a plan, so this
Yeah,
is
we
just
have-
the night
it's just
of
the
what
start.
everyone
The
wants.
sweet.
Just
this
the
is
start of it.
Yeah,
This is the wish list.
okay.
I'm just grateful that the town passed a tax a few years back for roads. Because otherwise, and, thinking back to what this process used to look like, because there was zero money in it when we had to pull road money out of the general fund. And this has made it a lot easier, and the pain isn't near as bad as it was.
All right, everybody, and you have your upcoming schedule of our meetings?
Mean we're not coming? Ever? Again?
It's right there.
Oh,
Is the National Night Out before, is that September 8th or
September
7th?
8th.
Damn, okay,
It's a Wednesday.
okay.
And we
And
have housing.
We have housing. What do we have housing? We
it's in-
have our next regular meeting. There'll be a partly work session, 6:30 to probably about 7:30, because you'll be doing labor, and then 7:30 your regular meeting will start. You have the 20th, which is a Monday, because the mayor Tarkington and I will be going to CML conference. and then we turn back around, and that next budget session will be starting to be putting things together.
Okay.
Okay, and then RHA, you're going to that on September 2nd?
Whenever it lands,
Yeah.
I think they're
Yeah,
gonna
I think
send a
they're still
doodle
now
out
up and
for
back
it.
up in the air, and
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
like,
It was supposed to be the 2nd, but they're
Oh,
sorting
okay,
it out.
okay, Labor Day, that whole.
I think,
that's-
yeah.
All right. All right, do we have any other questions, comments, anything? I will go ahead and adjourn this meeting. It is 9:09.